cryptocurrencies do need regulation, but what kind? Let's bring in Caitlin Long, Avanti Chair and CEO, and Ryan Selkis, Masari co-founder and CEO. Welcome to both of you. We'll get to the regulation point in just a moment, but Caitlin, let me begin with you in a kind of sort of freshman crypto course here. Teach me, if you wouldn't mind. What's the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum and Dogecoin? We tend to compare them and tend to compare their returns. Are we making a false comparison?
It is a false comparison. The technology is actually quite different, especially between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin is designed to do one thing really, really well, which is to be a monetary base, a base money. Ethereum is designed to do something else really, really well, which is to provide a smart contract capability. So from a technology perspective, they really are quite different. And Dogecoin definitely is getting a lot of attention these days, but it's actually the Bitcoin core code from several years ago that engineers have recently picked back up. It's not that different than the original Bitcoin core code.
Is Dogecoin real, or is it a joke?
Well, it's both.
It's both. It's like certs. It's like a breath mint and a candy mint.
Sure, right. I mean, the code is real, right? And it's entirely voluntary. That's what's great about the digital asset industry. These are voluntary, open, permissionless platforms. You can join them if you want, or you can stay away if you want. Mm-hmm. And whatever people choose is where what's called the hash power, which is the processing power in the network, will go. And right now, there's more going into Dogecoin than into other coins.
Let me bring in Ryan and get his reaction. You heard what Caitlin just said, Ryan. I'd like to get your responses to her response to my first question, which is, we make the comparison between Ethereum and Bitcoin all the time. Are we right in doing so, or are we totally off base?
Well, let me say, I think that both Caitlin and myself are in that professional and libertarian camp that you alluded to, so they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. Caitlin's right, though. In terms of Dogecoin, it's no different than GameStop, where GameStop is a real company, but it became a bit of a meme with a certain contingent of the retail trading audience. When it comes to Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's where the real staying power is. And the example that I like to use is a central bank and a investment bank. Bitcoin you can think about as in competition to central banks and is very much a distributed central bank, whereas Ethereum is more on the commercial banking and investment banking side. Many of the applications it's powering in the decentralized finance realm, lending, derivatives, exchange, et cetera, you can think about in direct competition to JP Morgan and the other big banks and exchanges of the world.
But then the natural question I would have, and I'll get Kelly in here in just a sec, are the two of them competing with one another or not, really?
I think you want both. If you want access to this industry, they are both critical components of any investor's basket to get exposure to the entire blockchain crypto economy.
Caitlin, my question is what we were talking about with Bob Pisani, where this idea that more regulation is coming also seems to be borne out, which we'll speak about in a moment, by the IRS getting the go-ahead to, go back and look at some transactions people have done with crypto over the past 4 years on exchanges. A lot of this activity seems to be underreported. I don't think a lot of people realize if you pay in Bitcoin, it's a taxable event. What's the biggest threat to crypto?
Well, the biggest threat is something that Ryan has talked about previously, which is U.S. dollar banking services. There does need to be connectivity between the two. And something really important happened in the industry yesterday, which is that the Federal Reserve released principles for payment system access for uninsured banks and other uninsured financial institutions, of which the digital asset industry has many. And the great thing is that the Federal Reserve opened the door for those to get access to the payment system as long as they meet the same standards as traditional insured banks. And that is a big deal. Of course, the Federal Reserve did not mention that it did not mention digital assets. It also didn't mention my native state of Wyoming, where I went home after 22 years on Wall Street to help enact 24 different laws. We walked very slowly and very deliberately, worked with the Federal Reserve at the state level in Wyoming for 3 years to create a welcoming legal and regulatory regime. So it's funny when I hear Jamie Dimon talking about the need for regulation, he obviously has some homework to do.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.